Isn't the rule you have to have 3 bids?
You know, if this is the person with 15 of them, we'd only be around 15 to 20,000. And we don't.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's 25,000 a month.
That you have to have the three bids. I did not know that. So that's super helpful.
How much a month?
25,000.
Our city manager's done a lot, good job of explaining all this.
Yeah, now I know.
We're learning as we
Yeah.
go.
So 25,000 is kind of like a threshold, and beyond that, we need 3 bids, but not up to that.
I like this sign.
I kind of do too. I think it looks really modern and like,
Yeah.
And I think it would be pretty close to like the wayfinding that they're gonna be updating through the city too.
Mhm.
this is Gopher Signs. This is one in town, right?
They're in St. Paul.
Are you
Or
from
road,
Gopher
yeah.
Signs?
Nope.
Oh,
I'm from
good.
Rotary.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay, I didn't know.
Sorry.
I didn't know
She
who
was
you
here
were.
last
Sorry.
meeting, so yeah.
I think it's, well, I mean, we want to keep it consistent, but I do think like the gateway where there is a lot more like modern fixtures along that, like, and you think about the bridge, that like this kind of ties with some of the architectural elements along the gateway. It feels like it would go really well. As far as the rest of our parks, I mean, that's, I think we just have to, like, would this fit in at Southwood? That's the only thing I struggle with a little bit, but I do think I could see this at, you know, maybe not that big of a rectangle, but fit along the sign itself. I mean, I think it would look nice depending on what color you do the steel, but.
What do you think about this for the wayfinding?
I like it. It's simple. I just have to come up with what goes inside of it.
I think the fact that it's simple, I like it too, does make it will probably match just almost anything. You know, if it had its own style.
And I'm guessing we wouldn't have to do like black. I mean, we could probably do these posts in whatever color we wanted, right? Like if we white or blue or green, or
Yeah.
like if we did it in green or whatever, I'm without knowing what the signs look like, we could, as long as we're consistent with the color of that, I think it would stand out. I also like that a bunch of kids probably are going to come by and be able to tear this down or something. It's like with those one stick signs, I worry a little bit like.
Does Rotary have a specific color?
Well, if you wanted to do in the Rotary blue color, I don't know how that's gonna fit in with the park we have.
Right, I think,
I
mine
mean,
Joe
I don't
was saying
know
that
if
he
it-
wanted to kind of blend it in with the rest of the shelter. Building
Yeah,
and stuff.
so probably
It's a brown.
the brown color of the roof or
wish-
something.
I wish I would have done this in color, it's pretty much brown. So,
And I remember Artie saying that as a contractor, he stays away from wood and that this looks sturdy and like it would.
Because this is metal,
weather
right? Or is
or-
this wood?
Yeah,
It cleans up, yeah. really well.
and if anybody
Kind of that takes
graffitis
the
it,
graffiti right out.
yeah, I
This
think
is
it's
metal,
a smart.
right?
It is,
Okay.
yeah.
I guess the other question would be, would it rust or is it like maybe things for the sign companies?
It's probably like powder coated.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's probably
Yeah.
like what you see in Three Rivers.
That's
That's what
what
I'm
goes-
picturing.
Cheaper than the sign estimate we had before, right?
It is a lot.
Yeah, it's super affordable.
And from what he was saying, it's a faster turnaround too, so 4 weeks. Talking to Wayfair, the other side, it's been a year yet.
Oh.
It seems like huge, but like, we were talking, might have been supply chain, yeah. So I will keep looking also just to see, get a comparison.
Are we looking to move on the Rotary sign tonight? Like, would you like us to say, yes, let's do this?
I think with $3,000, we have that in our Rotary budget.
Right.
Mhm.
So
I would think we're gonna have to, we could send it through and let us send it up to city council and see if they do.
But is it,
And
city
if they
council
like
isn't
the-
gonna vote on this if it's under X amount of dollars? Is that?
No, that's the bid. So
That's,
if it's above 25, you have to have 3 bids. So it's like a fair.
what is,
estimate.
we still need to approve the park plan. That's coming up.
This
Next Tuesday.
this Tuesday, yeah.
Yep, so then we'll be ready to start presenting stuff. If- that will-
But could we,
Will.
could we make a motion to move forward with this company so they can at least give us like some designs of what the signs look like, so we can vote on it next month?
And that's where I was gonna kind of refer you, is this something where if you have, yeah, Tim, I'm talking to you, Tim. We wayfind, so from what I was understanding when I talked to the lawyer, Rotary can buy stuff, put it in the park, and if you're going to give it to the city in the end, it's just considered a donation. So they could move forward getting the wayfinding signage in Rotary because it's also we're doing it flat. And that wouldn't necessarily be part of our park sign package that we're doing. They could just move forward with
Sure.
Send it
Let's
forward.
ask forgiveness.
I
It'll be the first park project. It wasn't even-
I suggest we send it forward, like, and see what city council says, so.
My question is, who does this have to get run by for approval for wayfinding? Is this planning commission that's got to approve? Do we have sign, do we have sign guidelines, like we have banner guidelines? like
Chris,
we
we can
have-
bring back the old gang.
Yeah.
Wayfinding is kind of its own thing. The park sign is going to be a different thing that's going to be along with the wayfinding for the city. And we did have the graphic artist do 2, 3, 4 things that we picked, kind of just the generic. It's got the city logo at the top, and that's calling the information center. So we will all match with the wayfinding,
And my other question, is, are these one-sided signs or two-sided signs?
two-sided.
Sweet, okay.
We
I
had,
figured
we
it was-
had.
I figured it was gonna double. That was where I went
Yeah,
from 3 to 6 in a
yeah.
heartbeat.
And then you would come in and propose what's gonna be on the sign, so, and then with the bark, was the scan code later?
Yeah, so I guess my question is there a plexi or glass that on top of that, or is that a special?
You give them the graphic and they put it on there. It's an image lock system.
So we have to go through Gopher sign to get the,
Updates or
yeah, I mean, if we're gonna put business names on it and stuff, it's gonna be updated every.
Well, that
12
was,
months.
that was one of my questions that
And I
we'll
didn't
have
know
to
if you were
think
gonna
through.
the business names or if it was gonna be like a number system with a QR code. Because then you could update the QR code and never have to update the sign.
I thought that's what we discussed last time.
I'm unsure because he keeps telling me, Joe keeps telling me something different every time. I talk to him what he wants on it. So what does this, I guess, what I understand, is one of them is gonna be a map of the Gateway Trail with the rest stops and stuff. One was gonna be about North St. Paul and Rotary. And then the next one was gonna be something about businesses, but if we're just gonna do a QR code, the website where I update businesses and stuff.
I think you would still have the map of downtown. I mean, I don't think the general structure of downtown is gonna change. What you could do is if you number the buildings or something in there and then say, go to the QR code to find out more or something, that's what could update. That was what I was thinking at least. Like, I think you still want the visual of like downtown North St. Paul and how to get there from Gateway Trail. But like you said, if the antique store closes and something else comes in and that restaurant's opening, that's probably gonna be what changes. But that's where I think where we thought the QR code was kind of genius, because then it's like, okay, well, if someone scans it, people are so used to that now with menus and stuff. They're like, oh, okay, look, there's some antique stores over here. And
Were you concerned with the business names changing? Is that what you
Yeah.
are concerned with?
Yeah.
So,
So this would eliminate that.
yeah, would they be satisfied with businesses and the person who's in charge of this project or the person that you're referring to, would they approve of not listing businesses on that sign but having a QR code?
Well, it's me that has to update it, so yes.
Kind of a long-term.
And we did talk
thing here,
about that
updating.
at length at our last meeting. And
Okay,
from what I remember, it was the map with the QR code.
yeah, no, it wasn't on the map so much as the businesses. It sounded like that needed to be acknowledged or something. Oh, but maybe, oh, you were,
well, Rotary's
I'm
paying
sorry.
for it, so.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about like businesses who are supporting the Rotary and needing to be acknowledged. Never mind, I was confused. Never mind.
So for their sake, because I know the Rotary's trying to move on this, because they have some grants that are gonna expire July 1st or something, right?
I think if we start, we have to start the project.
Yeah.
So we get the city to go out there and put a don't know if you want to pull up a map or something where we're thinking about putting this. Off of the big slab that there's by the restrooms, we're just gonna go out a little bit. Or if you guys think of a better place, we can't go on the other side of, or between the trail and the restrooms, because that's DNR property and they won't let us put businesses on.
You have to get permits and stuff.
Oh, it's up to you. It's on city property if it goes on that side.
Oh, that works, you know.
We've never done it for a park.
I don't, okay.
Yeah, no, I don't think I can
You
go
just
on
take a
the
hole and
DNR
put concrete, I don't.
We built James Playground. without permits.
Okay.
The city was there to observe it the whole time though, so they were the ones
Yeah.
inspecting the work.
What do we suggest we do with this?
I thought we agreed at our last meeting that Public Works was gonna move forward with the slab so that we could make, because that slab's gonna cost the grant money essentially that you have. And that part will be done. And then the signs can happen after that.
Right, and I guess we could do it two ways. I can talk to Public Works about
Mhm.
doing this. Rotary could do this, if they wanted to,
Pay for it themselves.
and it's considered a donation. So they can use their money, then I just get it approved by council that it was a donation.
Right, but they can't just go out there and pour a slab. Right?
Well, we want to know where you're going and plan all that out, but they can,
Oh,
as long as we.
Okay.
There's questions. I mean, there's gonna.
okay.
Yeah, it's like somebody requesting a bench and then we put in the. So it's kind of like they purchase it.
Okay.
But maybe it'd be better if I will ask again.
I just, that seems so opposite of what we've had to do previously.
I would prefer the public works.
Public Works,
yeah.
Okay, yeah,
And I would be to cover something up there.
Okay.
It's easier that way because then you just give us the money and, or you give the city the money and you make sure that all of that stuff is. Do we need a motion for that? Okay, great.
My question with the sign is like, do we want to agree that we like this sign so that it can go to council so they can agree that Rotary can get the signs, or do we wait on that till next month till we have designs, or like, just trying to keep this moving forward and not stalemating? Like, it would be nice that, again, we want our park signs, the parks agreed upon. We're waiting for the park improvement plan. But if we would be able to vote on that in May, potentially, like if we could come back to that meeting with maybe some like renderings of like, here's what Silver Lake Park could look like, here's what Rotary Park could look like, and that way in May we could say yay if we go to council in June, and then we could actually order stuff.
Okay.
Maybe have this summer.
And don't you think council's going to want a rendering of it before they vote on anything?
I think for the full-blown park, for the full-blown
Yeah.
park project, yeah, they're gonna want,
Yeah.
you're gonna have everybody involved in making sure that there's stuff similar.
Mhm.
This to me is kind of a one-off.
Okay.
At least that's the way I look at it. My only questions are, will there be city logo or park logos on the signage as they sit in Rotary Park along with the Rotary Park logo stuff?
Yes, we will have probably part of the center one that has the stuff about North St. Paul and about Rotary.
Because I'm just thinking about the one we did down here for the snowman, and I think there's just a little logo in the corner. And that didn't seem to have a lot of, I don't think there was a lot of talk to council.
It was pretty, I mean, we talked about it a couple of times. and looked
Right.
at it, but if we all agree as a group that we like this, then he could at least move forward at like, okay, working with the company to maybe get their renderings done or whatever. And then Jill can help us work with ours for like the specific parks so that when we come back in May, we can all, I just want to get to the point where we can actually vote on it and move forward.
So, and when's your drop dead date for having to have something kind of a hold on?
We need to spend $850 by July 1st.
Okay.
The slab.
I mean, if it were,
That's not the thing.
mean, this is up to you guys. What I would do is I would raise the proverbial flag at the next council meeting and start to get their input. Here's the recommendation coming from the Park and Rec that we move forward. Talk about the fact that it's a time-bound project for at least the beginning of something to get started, so that council's made aware of it. And you got a mayor that's on the Rotary, so I'm sure he's got ideas, or gonna have input, or gonna have questions.
So do you need us to vote on something with the council, or are you just saying like casually bring it up? As like a council?
Well, what I kind of imagine is I will do a plan of where the slab is gonna go, we'll figure out the sizes of frame that you want to do, where the slab's gonna go, how big it's gonna fit to have all three of those on there. I'll do the plan, I'll do the visuals, and I'll put it in there, and I'll put it under consent, and if they look at it and they go, okay, then there may not even be any discussion if they not, they'll pull it out and talk about it.
Okay.
Like the legal work, yeah.
That work for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good.
We'll talk later then.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in. All right, park improvement plan update. We met Jill and me and Candace, met with city council at a workshop on the 19th, last Tuesday, the 19th. And it went really well. There was just a couple questions from a couple council members. One was the confusion about why urban ecology is a park of ours, but which was postal credit, as you recall, is not under our jurisdiction. So,
Or is it?
or is it?
Right.
Or, yeah.
So we,
Fair.
and the question that was raised to me is, do you know why? I said, no, I don't know why. I think it needs to be addressed by council and decide.
There's park benches that postal credit union.
Yeah.
And it gets mowed.
Mhm.
I used to live right on that.
Well,
park.
the
We drove
city's
down there all the
city's responsible for mowing it.
time. Yeah.
It's, I called it Target Lake, DCU Pond. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been called a myriad of things in the period of time I've lived here. I'm sure there were names for it that date back
I grew
even
up
before
right in
Target
that
Pond.
pond.
Yeah.
It's not a park in my mind.
I don't know if that becomes a city manager question.
I mean, it is kind of the same thing as the urban ecology center, except the urban ecology area actually, I think could be, I think there's stuff that actually could be done there. It's kind of a space, it's kind of a shame that it's wasted. Now I walk it all the time and I'm like, oh, there's something cool here. And there's some dead signs.
Yeah,
in the middle. Yeah.
pretty bad shape, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who walk around and that cut through right by the, whatever we're calling it. North St. Paul. what do we call
It's a
it?
retention
Environmental-
pond. I don't recall
Yeah.
what it
But
is.
you know,
Which I
it is
imagine.
one of those things that like, if we actually, just having lived over there for 12 years, like something I always wish, and I asked Terry for it many times, is like, with people do cut through that area because there's a church right there, the North Haven up there, and then a lot of people from the neighborhood cut over to walk to that shopping area in Target, is that there actually isn't a sidewalk on that side. There's like no sidewalk on that side of 11th, and it's a huge, like that's where all the buses go, and there's no walking trail or trash cans. So people just throw their trash in there. If we actually designated a park, we could actually maybe connect more of a walking way, even mulch chips or something, but we could maybe put a trash can there. So, because I mean, that place, it gets so disgusting. And again, if it's considered part of, we're maintaining it, then that's our responsibility that everyone's garbage
the
is stuff.
city-
And that's what you
the
see when
city
you drive into North
maintains
St.
it.
Oh, that's.
The city maintains it, so if it falls under the park, there's the maintenance of that area falling. under the park budget. So I mean, I have more questions than answers.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying that like, it wouldn't be the worst thing if, like, if somehow that we threw one trash can, there's benches there, so the city is maintaining those, there's like 3 benches along that pond.
Yep.
People throw, I don't know, stuffed ducks or something, and there's some real mushrooms right back there too, that are really kind of a secret, but
That was the concern of the city council. And it brought it up.
There was
This is
mushrooms,
their-
there's
no,
morel mushrooms.
exactly the stuff that you were talking about with the path and everything.
yeah, I mean, I don't know, but it is one of those things that kids, because there's a bus stop there, and because it's a pathway to and from North High over to the Cub area, which also has a big bus stop area, there's no sidewalks, there's no trash cans, and what kids do, or anybody, they just say, oh, who cares, I'll just throw it And honestly, as a citizen, it's a concern of mine because that represents the rest of our city when it looks like that's a garbage dump. But I'm saying that positives could be of that. Because someone's maintaining those benches and mowing the grass there and.
So am I hearing a consensus that there would be an appetite for it to become a park?
I'm not talking about a playground.
No,
I'm
it
saying
fall
like
under,
a-
it fall under the park and rec.
Or at least the city should have. Plan for it,
Does it,
Oh, city mows it.
You know.
does that,
But I
as you
mean,
recall,
garbage-
which got brought up last fall, when I had asked this board whether I should get a hold of somebody to solicit funding to represent the park. And at the time, we had talked about the fact that maybe this is under our jurisdiction. And then the city council had asked about that at the meeting as well. We need to look into whether we want it.
I think it would be, I think it's something they would consider if it would be at minimal cost, because really what I'm talking about is adding a trash can there too. They're already mowing, which means some public work staff is already at that site. But potentially maybe as part of the city's plan, they could work to connect, adding a sidewalk there. Massive, a sidewalk over there on the south too, but, you could create like a more paved walkway between those neighborhoods for people with strollers or, bikes or a little safer than what's there. Because my kids would like run out there and almost run. They know to stay on the sidewalk, but when it's grass, you just kind of like,
Right.
I think if we proceed with that, we need to get a name, because PCU is no longer.
PCU pond doesn't work, or
No,
Target
well,
Hay.
for Target,
Then
then
they're gonna get
they should,
Right.
help with funding there. But yeah, it's, what is it?
Yeah,
or a long pond.
the. Well, that would get one vote.
Kind of sure you do it.
And maybe the city manager should be consulted in this.
I just think that we probably, my opinion is we need some guidance from the city.
Yeah.
And what are the rules if it becomes a park? Is it then designated as a park forever? I have no idea
Yeah.
what some of these rules
Yeah,
are.
right. There can't be many, because they're calling this little piece of land over from Central Park,
Must
and I'm
not-
telling you, that's not Central Park.
Yep.
So.
It's classified as a mini park here. It's in their list.
They did
So-
have to
Yeah.
shut me up, Sue, so that there was these pieces of land on there downtown. They're like, you've got a park down there. There's Central Park.
Well, we're not maintaining that flower bed anymore, because we heard it was gonna go, that little circle garden.
Oh.
Oh.
So do you
Part
want
of the
to,
city's mysteries, like who takes care of those things.
you want to send a recommendation to the city council that they, do we want that to be a?
I think what Tim says, I think let's get their guidance and understand. It sounds like, they're mowing it, they're doing some maintenance, so what do we want to do with it? And it's not a worthless piece of land, like people do go and sit on those benches, like.
Well, to your point, let's find out from the city what the rules are, and it does need to be unified a little bit.
Yeah.
I would lump that with that urban ecology center too, say, we have this piece of land that literally people are going through on our way to the city, and it's actually kind of pretty, like, but would we do something else, nicer benches or something?
It's a
that
big
people
chunk
could
of
rest?
land. I mean, when you think
Yeah.
about it.
No, I mean, we could do a little trail or something, there's some weird
Yeah.
bench up on a hill, but I'm like, what is their stance on beautifying those things if we have more dense populations? And I can only imagine those apartments and those townhomes are fully, more people are gonna be walking over that bridge, that urban ecology center.
I wish we could
waste.
either fix those signs or get rid of them. I just hate junky stuff like that. Fix it or take it down, one or the other.
I think we vote, take it down,
Yeah,
or put it up
Well,
with
it's not
something
ours,
else.
it's DNR, isn't it?
Oh,
It's DNR.
Because
Which
it's right
one?
off the trail.
Those signs at the Urban Ecology Center, that's the DNR. Aren't they?
they're
I'm
just.
pretty sure.
Well, I don't know either.
That's what it says.
And I know that's part of our, and that was mentioned too at the workshop, is it's been kind of left by the wayside over in that corner.
Yeah, it's not cute.
We have $5,000 in the park improvement plan for urban ecology.
You too?
Yep.
Oh, that's our new project, Nancy. Let's walk over there next week and take a look.
Yeah,
That's kind of our neighborhood park. Isn't it? So,
I mean, maybe the DNR would do something thing. for
I
the stuff
just
that-
seem to remember when those signs were put up, that there was something to do with the high school. Do you remember that, Lloyd?
Yes.
Were you around?
Yes,
Wasn't there? They were down there doing.
it was all during the building of the bus
Yeah, I'm
garage.
wondering if they had something to do with that.
Well, I doubt they care anymore.
No,
Honestly.
No,
no.
that was
I
all
doubt
during
they,
that time
anybody's
when the
around to
bus
even know.
garage was put in and it kind of got
Yeah.
pushed over towards that Cambridge Ecology, so there were citizens concerned about what the ramifications would be.
Yeah.
Natural
Yeah.
area, ecology area.
Actually,
Well, it
that's
has to be- I was on the.
It actually could be
environmental
really
commission right after that.
Gateway Trail.
That had to be the worst spot in Ramsey County, put that bus garage. I mean.
Yep.
What if, yeah, so
Anyways,
can we find out what we can do with it, basically?
Sure.
Because Sarah and I were just chatting, that could be our natural play area and instead of trying to put it in Southwood.
Where we could find
Oh,
out.
yeah, we
Yeah.
couldn't find a spot, and then she had the idea,
Kids are on,
biking,
kids on
so-
a bike, they have
Yeah.
great, we could put a picnic bench or something
Yeah.
where parents can stop, have a, I mean, the Rotary has like the actual whatever, but some, like a bench and maybe a little natural
Yeah.
bike could be so cute.
Yeah.
Such high visibility.
For sure. So I think moving on that is a good idea, finding out what we can do with it.
And even better, like it might address some of that dense population that's moving in right across that
For
bridge.
sure.
But a quick trip, if we do something that's kind of all age play,
Yeah.
like natural fits in, we can use that. It's pretty space.
Is that property actually owned by North St. Paul or is it some part of ours? It's a part of ours, so.
which
It's one of
one?
our parks.
Urban
Oh, the
ecology.
urban ecology is
Yeah.
ours.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So the quick trip, you go over that Gateway Trail Bridge behind Holiday, it's right there going south. It's actually quite pretty. There's a little it's kind of wetland, I guess. And there's,
Lots of deer back there.
there is some weird bench up on a hill.
For a while, wasn't there a path
It does look like from the
that
bus
was
trip, yeah.
mown up there? I mean, I've never wanted to walk up there because every time I've been there, the grass is so high, it's all I could see is
Well, there was
chips all
the path back then, back
over.
before the bus garage. So that all kind of meshed in together.
Well, there's parking
And then it
spots
got
for it
taken.
at the bus garage.
And that's because the environmental commission pitched such a bid that they finally put 2 spots there.
So I think we need to do a lot more investigating around that, but I think we all agree that making it something that we maintain or are stewards of would be a good idea. So maybe finding out what that looks like, and if there's confusion about whose land it is, like over by Silver, where 8 million people converge on each other. That maybe we look at what stakeholders we need to bring in, like if there's a tiny spot of DNR and then the Rotary, who do we need to talk to about what we want for the future of that park?
And do we need to change that in the park plan? Because if they're gonna sign, seal, deliver on the park plan, and we don't say that we have plans for urban ecology, does that matter?
No, because we do have plans, we say we have $5,000 in the budget, and just because city council approves it doesn't mean that it can never change. It means, I think they know that it will change.
Yeah.
They just
Okay.
wanted us to have a foundation to
Got
work from.
And here it's called North St. Paul Environmental Learning Center, and there's a map.
Like, we could keep
Yeah,
that name and do a ton of really cool things,
Yeah,
like passive education. and
They brought that up at the workshop.
and we could
about
put a
how-
sidewalk from that Holiday over to the other side.
They brought that up at the meeting about how often we want to do it. And we said, look, here's-
And wasn't that council, so I don't know when we'll bring that back, but when we were talking to the city manager, I'm like, we do this every year, we would just be in paperwork.
Yeah,
We had talked 3 or 5 years.
So he said, yeah, 3 years, district should look at it again. present it.
So the plan doesn't change, the priorities do.
Yeah.
And that's the piece that can be addressed. We haven't done it in 2 years, but when you would present to council the achievements that the Park and Rec have done and get the redeem recognition, you can also lay out the, whatever the agreed upon goals are for the next 1 to 3 years. Because, this ecology center might move up where it wasn't even hardly in contention per se as a priority. It all of a sudden might move up to a 1 to 3 year, 3 to 5 year. That's the kind of thing that can be talked about.
That funding that's dedicated for the year.
And,
Sorry.
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
We were just.
Dan, asked, they asked about whether maintenance was included in our estimate. I told yes. Maintenance costs, whatever it was.
Annual maintenance costs?
Which,
no, it's
never.
Pat and Casey has nothing, that has nothing to do with us.
Okay,
But I think the
Because they'll
city,
walk, cities walked in and done the whole north side of the path 1 year, when we had told them, you know, it was kind of bad that we should do something. You know. 2 weeks later, shit, we were over there doing the path on the north side. Out of the blue, but nothing ever got brought up at the meeting about it to us at all.
I think that's part of what the city is working on internally, is figuring out or making sure that expenditures are coming out of the same budget that revenue is coming into, right?
I don't know.
Well,
I
like,
know the maintenance is getting done, that's why you guys told me about it. I
And all
sent
the
it to them, and
trash
then
and
where they
all
take the money from.
Facilities and all parks are not paid for by us.
I know, but the city is telling us that they should be, because we're collecting the revenue
And they're gonna
from,
give us the money.
but we're collecting the revenue for the buildings.
But,
Well,
but,
that's,
But you're
Not
talking
even
about cleaning the
paying
buildings,
building.
or about mowing the grass.
Which
That's
I'm
what
not
I'm
talking about mowing
Oh,
grass.
okay.
yeah,
I'm talking about,
I'm
Maintenance
not
of the building.
sure on that one, because really the
And
revenue
the
that we
whole
get from the
flowering over
buildings pay
there
for the
and all that.
buildings. And that's about it.
city, isn't it?
that's
Um,
all
I don't
city
really know
costs.
the budget on that,
That
but
was
I'll
never
check
part
into
of
that.
our budget.
I really don't
I
know.
think that when they mentioned maintenance, it was painting over the 5 years, 6 years, painting over.
Yeah, if we put something new in there, so like the. one of the projects of it.
I see,
Like
so
if-
like if things break down where
Yeah,
like
if
the
you
playground
put a
needs to be
new-
repainted or something.
Yeah,
That's
something
what
like
I
that,
mean.
or a new
Put in
swing or
parts,
something like that.
As the estimate going. to
Yeah.
have, Like maintenance on that equipment.
That
I
was
think
my
that's really
understanding.
hard to guess.
So the way I interpreted the question is it can go 2 ways. The way I chose to interpret it, because I think it came up around park usage and tennis courts. And so if it's so, and I'm gonna spitball a number out there. If it's gonna cost us $60,000 to redo a tennis court, and we know we've got to resurface it in 5 years for $7,000, is the park plan accruing the $7,000 to pay for the resurfacing? Or if you look at the life cycle of a swing set, we'll call it 20 years and it costs $6,000 to put it in, is the park and rec accruing for the replacement of that equipment, as you do with, with the city does with fire trucks, the snow plows, and it's money that gets set aside to pay for the ongoing expenditures. That's the way I chose to interpret it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you
do
could quickly
that.
go the other direction as well and say, well, who's paying for who's paying for Blacktop Trail? Well, that kind of fell under public
It comes out
works.
of the same place.
So,
It just, whose pocket you're taking it out of, but that's all you're doing is providing.
well, we've got a big bucket of money and we have to show where that money's going and where we're accruing it for and what is
I
being
guess-
done with that.
I guess my question is, it seems hard to like guesstimate that up front, like,
Now, it's easy.
But-
You've got
timeline.
a person down there that's got all
Yeah.
sorts of
Oh.
tables and charts that.
because to
I'm
me, it's
sure
like you're
when-
saying, well, this playground's gonna crap out in 25 years, well, that we do know, and go and replace, we go and fix, we try
So then we
to.
gotta start saving money to replace that, and what we pay
Yeah.
for it today isn't gonna be what it's gonna cost in 25 years.
I guess I feel like it's what we've done, we just haven't put it on paper. like-
exactly.
And have we done it? I don't,
Well,
I
with
think
so many
we just,
courts and things like that.
we've just pulled from existing funds, we haven't really set up a fund for maintenance.
Oh.
It's just. So I think there's, again, the way I interpret it is they're just looking for more structure around, the capital expenditures and how they're being, for lack of a better word, depreciated and.
Well, that's all
in a-
well
in a
and good for
replacement
the-
life cycle.
Fire trucks and everything, but we're a volunteer commission. We're not,
Well, they're not asking us to do it.
No.
Again, that falls on another department. The question is, are we doing it? And my answer probably would have been no, because I don't think we are. I don't think we
never
do.
have. Never have.
But it was my understanding that it was, but now when they have the discussion in May, if it gets brought up again, we'll at least have some direction as we discussed this at this meeting, and we need to figure out about the full depreciation, like Tim had said, and it's never been discussed.
My concern is that if we start calling it maintenance, then I feel like it's gonna be really shifty for the city to say, okay, now that the trash can cleaning is gonna come out of here. I think
Right.
if we're gonna do something like that, I would want to be really crystal clear of like, here's the 10 things that maintenance is. This
Yes.
is
No,
repairing
it's gonna
tennis
have
courts.
swing set at Casey Lake, slide at Southwood.
Oh, like
it
it
will
wants us to
literally be
itemize
de-
the ones.
No,
that-
we don't.
No. we're not gonna-
That's the way it's done.
Oh,
They
got
would.
it, okay.
So you just want, they just want a line item on our budget that says
No,
maintenance.
they just asked an open-ended question.
Okay,
They wanted to know if the maintenance was covered in our figures.
My short answer is it's probably not. But
I mean, we've been we save money because we know playground equipment will fall apart and need to be replaced. There isn't a formal line for maintenance, but we always
So-
keep money to maintain the parks. And in our previous park plan, it says, this playground was put in at this time and we anticipate it will depreciate in 10 years, so that we could think about where we needed to go. So that all was in the previous.
I think
The
it's
previous
easy
work
enough,
on
so if they want to do it, and, maybe it's if we have 50 grand a year, we take 5 of it or something, put it aside or whatever.
Like a percentage.
Yeah, like whatever that is, and that's what I do in my own life. I'm like, okay, well, this is going into this fund, and like, it'll build, and then you pull from there, and then, hey, guys, we only have 5,000 in there, we can't repair the tennis court, but next year we'll double it up, which, again, we have kind of done,
It's just not formalized.
yeah, if they want it separate.
so.
What I'm saying is, I would just want a really crystal clear
Yeah.
list to the
I
city
agree.
of things that
I
are
agree.
considered park maintenance, because this is where I think
I
it
totally-
gives
It's not
confusing.
maintenance, it's equipment. Think of it another way, it's
Equipment.
equipment replacement.
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
could call it that.
Yeah, let's call it that.
Some
Refresh.
bridge, so there's
Can we
not
ask
be a
the city finance person if we need to do anything crazy to make something like that happen? Or if it's as simple as putting a line item in our budget?
So Jill, that's where I guess I would look to you. Is it a conversation that we have with Mr. Winnick? Yeah, or,
Yeah, I need
and
to
see
straighten out
what,
everything. with
because
that. I get it.
you could ask again.
Oh, yeah.
And if, and
Right.
if Dan says, no, we don't need to, then, then Lloyd's got an
And I think,
opportunity to say.
Yeah.
Just when it's like watching like night tennis courts, like just kind of getting worse and worse and worse. And my opinion is like, they still need to be fixed.
And
So
that was,
we gotta-
Well,
we
something
gotta
needs
do-
to be
we gotta-
done with the space. They don't need to be
Yeah.
fixed, something needs to be done with the
This is- yeah.
space.
And that's
So
not.
the
our-
maintenance will just have to be part of it, and he just wanted to make sure that when we start putting new stuff in, it's not gonna deteriorate. like-
Well, I mean, could we have a thing where, from here on forward, every time we put in something new, a formula for a certain
Right.
percentage, attrition, whatever, we think this might last X number of years, we don't have to figure out this formula, but
So you said
maybe
finance.
it's just
Like,
like,
just put,
from this point forward, every time we put in a new piece of big equipment, we just, there's a formula and then a certain amount goes in our maintenance fund, and it's only playground replacement.
when's that city council meeting on this? What day? What's this Tuesday? Next Tuesday?
Couldn't we just tell the council that we discussed it and at our next meeting, we're gonna talk to the city?
This
finance?
won't come up in the passing of, I'm assuming that's in the consent agenda anyway, so there
I
won't
put
be
it in
discussed.
consent, whatever days I'll tell John about Cleveland, and then so someone could get out. Let it keep the-
So would you suggest I either do?
If you want.
Okay. And I can mention, I can just say, we had a discussion at the last meeting. We need some clarification. You and I can kind of.
Yeah, and if they don't pull it out of consent, it's fine, it's just gonna.
We're just gonna leave it alone.
And we can gently remind them that we have been able to do anything with the night courts, we can't do anything as well as. park
And that's gonna be, we're gonna talk about that tonight too. That's a
And
big
there
news.
also was a global pandemic that we needed, that everything put on pause because we had full intention of moving forward with projects.
But again, the way I view it is approving the park improvement plan. And if we have a plan for replacement equipment or two separate projects. This,
Yeah.
the park improvement plan is what's being voted on, not whether we have, not whether we have something in place for.
All right, I'll put it on my agenda to show up in case it, is there a chance that while I'm sitting in the audience, they call me up? Or,
Not much raising hand.
well, then I'm not gonna raise my hand.
There's always, if you're there, there's always a chance.
Okay, then I'll be there just in case. Jill and I can fine tune it. The good news. The last question I asked was city council and the mayor is, well, I kind of politely said, we would like to move forward with planning the park improvement ideas. Meaning, we want to get some ideas to the city council once it's approved. So the mayor, and a couple city council members agreed, that, yeah, we can start getting ideas into the chute. We just can't do any recommendations until it's approved. So that being said,
Get
now
off
we're
the
rolling
pocketbook.
right now. Here we
Let's
are.
go.
Let's go.
Go.
So
Great.
I have a hard stop at 8:00. So can I, because all of my notes tie into where you're going on the next topic.
okay,
So if it's okay with the Park and Rec, do you mind if I move my liaison comments and
yes,
reports too? Because it all ties into this.
go ahead.
And the first thing I want to do is commend everyone sitting in this room for all the energy, effort, time. How did I, love, sweat and tears, emotions. There were times we walked out of here crabby. There were times we walked out of here happy. There was times that everybody was frustrated. So I said this to council as well, but I wanted you guys to hear it, that you guys done a hell of a job. It was a long road to hoe, or whatever that thing is, to finally get there. And now that the heavy lifting has been done, the maintenance of what sits in front of us, I think will be a lot easier to do. I want to thank Lloyd, Candace, and Jill for sitting there for the hour that it took to present it. There were a lot of questions. There were a lot of good questions. A lot of things that made me pause and go, never looked at it that way. That's repurposing of certain things. One of the things that we brought up is, do you repurpose a hockey rink in Casey? Because then it's only used in the winter for right now. Do you figure out a way to put blacktop down on it, and does it become a basketball court in the summer, or pickleball, or so think through some of those types of things as we take inventory of each park and what space currently exists that could be repurposed or reused. I had some questions that came out of it. Does anybody know, do we have an NSBA anymore?
Say that one more time.
Do we have an
Yes.
athletic association anymore?
So yes and no. So why it's actually in it this summer. It's Heather's friend's husband's actually kind of running it now.
Oh.
And Svensson, yeah. And so it is, they're kind of bringing back the, like, I don't want to say athletic association, but the baseball side of it. They use apparently some batting cages that exist right over here, if no one knew.
At McKnight?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, not a McKnight. There's a whole batting cages right behind
Yeah,
the fire truck.
a young guy from North St. Paul, I don't know the name, everybody else.
Blew
in
my
family
mind. I'm like,
knew
what
who
is he
it was, but
talking about?
He just
Baseball.
opened it up, and what used to be a Burwell, a silver
I don't say
one.
batting, it's like a practicing
Yeah.
facility for baseball. Anyways, so yeah,
wow.
why it's in it this summer. So they're using our parks.
Downtown.
So
Which
I don't,
is-
Right behind the, across the alley
It's
from
something
Love.
that the city
Ice cream.
doesn't organize. We have the ball fields. Lisa tried, puts all of the games and tournaments and stuff on the field, and that's kind of the limit on what we're doing right now. It's so shorthand that there's not something where we can take everybody's registrations and make up teams and do all that kind of stuff yet.
yeah, so I was just curious if they existed, because I know that the football kind of moved off on their own several years ago, and it became the junior polars, and I don't even think they're part of the city anymore.
Nope.
Other than they store equipment at Casey Lake.
They're part of the school district.
So that's and same with the signs that I see on Casey, for baseball, it didn't have NSPAA, it had whatever the North St. Paul baseball was or
There used to
something.
be two people running the traveling team situation was a privately owned deal, and then in-house stuff. So it's actually two groups.
Okay, so, because part of one of the questions is, how much is the park stuff being used? My question is, we have a ton of ball fields. Are they being used? What are we
Only
doing
two
with
at
them?
Casey, but
I can ask this, she's going us with trying to coordinate those, like night, I think it's booked all the time. The high school uses the fields and then we kind of push everybody off it. They're assigned those, they get priority. And then when they come in, I heard her talking about Northwood, using Northwood and Casey, so. They're
So
getting.
Casey's got 1, 2, 3 plus the baseball field. We have 4. Oh, there's only one upper, there's only one on upper now, isn't there?
Yeah,
So there's one upper and one lower in the back corner and then the baseball field.
And I have to check. what
There's
her
one at House, there's
agencies-
one at Housey, there's one at Northwood. I mean, is there space to repurpose some of those ball fields? Are they?
Housing really isn't I mean, it's technically something, but it would require a lot of maintenance to have like an actual baseball game there that isn't T-ball or kickball.
our
In
kids
the
used to
past.
play there
That's all I
and
remember.
at Howard.
They do
Howard
the
is a
Pony League.
swamp all the time.
the T-balls and stuff, that was over there.
Okay, I was gonna say, if you're
Yeah.
talking like a game.
No.
They had the pony,
I
they
don't
had the
think our
pony league,
girls-
which is the little ones.
Girls League used to
Okay.
play there.
So we had
My
the
daughter played
first, the kindergarten, first and
Mhm.
second graders would play.
Mhm.
their
That
games
makes,
there.
okay, that makes sense for that space, but
And it
So-
may be something that WSB can shed some light on too, because I think there's a criteria of like your population versus how many you just have
Right.
recreationally in town. Or-
We discussed this before, but we don't have a soccer field anywhere, which is like actually a faster growing sport than baseball. Soccer is actually one of the #1 played sports among like younger kids.
Everybody plays it up, yeah.
But we don't have any,
Are they over-
That's-
are they over the
that's
age?
a pretty interesting dynamic because Maplewood Parks and Rec has a ton of soccer fields, but Maplewood Parks and Rec Department no longer exists after the pandemic. They have people on staff, but they basically gave all of their vendors, the people who run programming, to local organizations that surround them to run independently. So I would say pre-pandemic, it would be really difficult to compete with Maplewood Parks and Recreation in soccer, because in this area, that's where everybody goes to play soccer.
Yeah, that's what we do.
The complicated part of the dynamic is we're in the metro, right? And we are so densely populated with a bunch of different cities who have very similar, recreation opportunities. So as you look at what you want to spend your money on and what you want to dedicate your time to, you also need to look at your surrounding cities and see what they are, like what their niche is. And that's my professional work coming into this, because professionally, it's my job to run as much programming as I possibly can. But I know that Maplewood has a robust XYZ program, so I'm not about to put mine out and get their 3 little kids or whatever. So I think repurposing it is a great idea and with the caveat of, can we repurpose it so that it can be multiple different things? Not even just like, can we convert a field, like one baseball field to a soccer field? Can it be an open field that allows for football, soccer, rugby, lacrosse? Just like you would think about building fields for a school district. Like what are all of the different things that it could be?
So a lot of questions about repurposing some of the ball fields. Do we give designated areas for designated space and one idea that popped to mind is Northwood's got a ball field that I don't know if it ever gets used. It's got a huge chunk of land over there.
The
Dog
softball
park.
teams used it before
We used to last year.
Yeah, the little kids baseball, and then like middle school, I feel like softball was over there using it.
But what other fields are and aren't being used? Can we better think through the fields we have?
If that's your overarching question, yes, I mean, I definitely.
And then repurpose space, because that's one less area that the city has to maintain as well.
And one of the big points that I think Candace was making in the plan too is to make big impact. So when I hear about like the baseball field at Northwood, it wouldn't be just a baseball field. I think she would suggest looking at all of Northwood. So you have the shelter that's not ADA. You got the hockey rink that's kind of starting to fall apart. You have the warming house, which totally needs to be just relocated. So instead of just looking at the one part, I think Northwood would just be a whole project in itself.
And I wholeheartedly agree, there's no funds to do it, so I think a full plan needs to be put in place and then we prioritize the parts.
Yeah.
What you can
Do you
basically-
guys have any access to like national survey data or like in my field, there's like different organizations that provide data for like, hey, this sport is growing, or this is what we're seeing in urban communities, or like, just like data that we can use that isn't just like the guessing game. I say this because I'm like, if we're gonna redesign parks or repurpose things, what will be helpful to know is what is most important to growing populations, most of which we know actually are having fewer and fewer kids. So like, as we look at like, there's gotta be some kind of data out there that says that these people are looking for dog parks, or they're looking for this, or they're looking for that, or it would just be helpful from a like, completely whatever point of view that isn't biased, I guess.
I can get it from our Parks and Rec department within the state.
Okay.
And I can look at the community ed data as well.
I think it'd be good to just look at it from a non-biased standpoint of view. Like, obviously we all have personal experiences, but it would be good to know, like, and like what I do, it's like, what is it going to be 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the road, so that we can, if we're going to spend $100,000, $200,000, we're doing it wisely. And
Well, and those tennis courts too. To me, it's just absolutely shameful that we've done nothing. That all that ground is sitting
yeah,
there.
pickleball is so popular.
Well, and that's
Are you
why,
talking about
that's why the
midnight?
maintenance
Midnight
question
and
came
that
up is,
Housing Park.
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
and the other thing, I have never heard mentioned is the change in demographics in North Park. It's huge. It's huge.
so one of the things that Candace talked about is something that they have, is they have the ability to take a look at where each of the parks are located, and then I don't know how big of a circle she draws. But she's able to figure out the demographics of the use of that park.
She did share that when she was here, and I think all of us were like, yes, definitely.
And I think that's totally cool information.
Yeah, I agree.
That doesn't mean that in 20
it's
years,
not
the demographics might not look
It's not
different, but at
free.
least it
Not
gives,
free.
no, nothing is. But
But we do have money to examine how we
Yep.
invest, right? As-
so if it costs $5,000, it costs, I mean, let's,
Yeah.
I agree.
Especially if we have city council who's like, what are you doing? You know, like we can say this data is steering us to make these decisions.
Well, in the long run, it'd be cheaper to do it correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly,
But
yeah.
it's like, a splash pad would be great, but if our demographics are changing and we only have people 19 to 29 and
Right,
then
right.
60 to 80, then we don't need splash pad. You know what I mean? Like, these are the things that need to
Yep.
dictate what these things are going to become, as well as like, I think help shape like whatever downtown space there could be.
The splash
But-
pad, I asked Carrie about the splash pad. And there is a piece going on with whatever's going on with White Bear. And there's a 3 mile or a 5 mile radius as far as 5 mile radius as far as how you can have water, how you can use water. And there's been moratoriums over in Lake Elmo about building, because if you're within that 5 mile area, and Lake Elmo technically is, and we are within that 5 mile area,
Yeah.
5 mile radius,
Well,
where it ends, just like
Yeah,
Lake
yeah.
Elmo,
Yeah, actually.
regardless of whether it's that little corner over there, it affects the whole city. That being said, Carrie said we could be looking at 40% decrease in water usage
I mean,
because
water restrictions. for
because of
White Bear.
whatever lays out with the Supreme Court on the White Bear issue. So,
That just may be tabled for 10 years.
Yeah.
so,
There's another,
All right,
can I just add what, there's just something that struck me when you said that about, whatever, but when you said the splash pad, let's just pretend like there isn't a water thing and that could be something. That can also shape population too. So a splash pad could attract families with young children. So don't forget about the other way too, so that what we put in can actually shape the population that, not really strongly, but
We saw,
But it
we
could have-
actually got survey data back from Casey Lake with a lot of the surveys. We had like 3 homeowners that actually said, we moved here because it seems like
Okay,
our
yeah.
favorite part.
yeah.
And we saw a house for sale, we wanted to live like where we could walk here. We, that's a great public space, attracts people. Like, who
Right.
doesn't want to live next to
Right.
something that's nice, it's free.
So I guess I was just gonna say, it's not just one way that, yeah. Anyway, sorry.
Couple of my other things, and Jill, you brought up McKnight Field. Does the city own that or is that a park?
Anyway,
Is that a park or does the city own it?
The city owns it.
So the city owns it, the city controls it.
School district built everything that's there. Or wasn't
We don't control that
when
one.
they built the high school. But it was all built underneath that bond issue that built the high school. Because I was part of the deal when they redid the leach field. End of '97. They started working on the field. First of July, everything was over. They wanted them to have it done the next spring. So they got to September, and then they didn't put any grass. They're gonna wait till spring. Well, finally, we had to go talk to them. It was all school district. And that's when I found out they were doing it. It was all part of the bond that paid for the school.
So are you saying that it's?
I'm just
City
curious,
owned that
is
they
it,
would
is
actually-
it a park? So does it fall under
It's
this?
in our park plan.
Yeah.
It's in our park plan.
Alright.
I guess.
We used to get the revenue from the advertisement, the signs.
Know where I'm going, thank you.
Keep
Why I
track of that. We
asked.
had to like track down everybody for those advertisements.
I mean, it was a
Which
shared
is on my
deal with
list to do
the-
the whole.
Yeah, but it's not, the school district sold it off.
Yeah.
The
The whole thing
the
was
whole
supposed to be a shared
complex.
complex.
The school district doesn't own any part of it though. anymore.
But they just.
community park, it's considered a community park. Casey, Silver, and McKnight.
So. Keith used to run it, and then it fell to Works, and then I think it fell onto Lisa's lap. I'm not 100% sure.
Maybe it's what, I mean, she does own the ball field.
So, so my question is, I heard somebody tell me that there's no teams down there playing on
It can't, it's condemned. Like night
wait,
field.
no,
it. No,
I think it's.
Oh,
we're
we're
talking
talking
about
tennis
baseball.
courts,
Yeah.
I'm sorry,
Yeah.
sorry.
Baseball,
yeah,
they just haven't started yet. The field conditions are, she had to cancel pretty much
Okay,
everything.
so-
Everyone
When
scheduled in the
baseball's
last
had to, like,
week.
cancel
Yeah, it's
all
just all the rain.
so we've got beer
They
leagues
do.
going on down there. We've got, who's running the
The Legion.
concession stand? That's Kunkel, that's separate from the
Yeah.
fourplex. And the
Talking
concession
about
stand.
the softball field.
Oh,
Yeah, the
Yeah.
force, the fall softball
I don't know,
fields.
because at one point I thought they always had to come get the key for the bathroom too. This was like
So-
2 years ago, I'm like, but. that's-
So again, I got a
Good
couple of
question.
questions and I've got answers for some of the spots that we've got. But again, if repurposing, can you move, other than the end of the year softball tournaments, if those spaces aren't getting used, or if we're not getting income from the use of those fields,
We still aren't,
Does-
because the school gets priority in
on the fourplex,
the,
what does the school use that for?
that's for baseball.
So they've got their own baseball field, and then what about the other 4 fields?
What other field? Maybe I don't
The
know.
Legion is.
You got
separate.
Kunkel Field,
Uncle Field.
That's Legion.
That's
which,
Legion.
who owns that? That's still city owned, and is that part of the
City
park?
owns it.
I need to pull them up.
yeah, I need to say that.
There's a Legion field in the corner right when you get off the highway.
I can
Right.
relate to it. Uncle.
So,
Yeah.
without beating this whole thing to death, we gotta, boatload of ball fields and I want to know what the usage
It'd
is.
be nice to get a listing of them all.
I can
Are
find
they
out
being
right
used
now
and what for?
Yeah.
Yeah.
what
Um,
fields.
And
school
just
district.
let's make sure we're utilizing to the
More than
fullest that we've got. And that's a
Protected
beautiful facility and let's make sure that that if it's T-ball, it's T-ball. I mean, it's just a cool place. I would hate for it to not get used. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, I know, yeah, it is a cool.
Concession stand, I don't know.
It used,
That's
St.
gone.
Pete used to
St.
run.
Pete's used to have,
Hey,
yeah.
plus fire, still called
Postal
fire
credit
department
union.
one time.
You're right, the fire department, so
Yeah, where's that at? Well,
Okay, there it is.
There's the 4 fields. 20,
Yeah.
2310, 2310, 2310, 2310.
yeah.
That's all
I
4
really am
fields.
kind of making it up, with Lisa. I mean, this park and rec, she does the baseball and the softball. So this is what I'm guessing the high school gets priority on all the time. And this scheduled it.
I can
They've
let you
got their
know
own
in
field right
in a couple of minutes.
to the west.
See, and I didn't even know we
Okay,
had that.
does
one.
the high school play
So-
on Kunkel?
Well, who plays on
Somebody
Kunkel?
point to Kunkel.
Legion.
Where is Kunkel?
Right down the
Right,
corner.
up,
That's the
right
corner
there, that's
one,
Kunkel
okay.
Field.
That's where the high school plays, I believe.
Well, they do.
Yeah.
And,
The other one,
well,
there's
and the
softball
VFW.
fields, that's it,
Right.
baseball field. right?
That's baseball.
Where,
Yeah,
Kunkel?
there's our softball.
Yeah, Kunkel is the only baseball field.
And they
there.
practice at the
And
other field.
I didn't know till like, what, 2
They don't
meetings
even
ago that we
practice
had
over
a
there
field there in that corner
Right
behind
there.
that.
Yeah, I don't think,
Is that-
Yeah, there's another
That used to be
softball,
a
there's another
T-ball
softball field right
does
there,
that
yeah.
ever get used?
That's a little one.
That's a
used-
T-ball field as far
It
as.
used
I
to,
know.
Does it get used?
when my kids were little, we used it, but the
Yeah.
demographics of
I
the
mean,
city
that's
has
where
changed.
all the hockey rinks,
Yeah.
5
right.
hockey rinks.
You had, at the time, you had 4th, 5th, and 6th grade girls. Little pitch
Well, you
girls
were on
that
the
played
Kunkel,
over there.
isn't it now nonprofits use it for free?
What?
The baseball field.
What baseball?
Any of them.
I thought well, the fourplex, which I'm calling Night Field,
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is night.
we used to charge teams to play there for their beer ball leagues.
Right.
Don't know if we still
Monday
do,
through
don't know.
Friday.
if-
Well, who
Don't
knows
know if
that?
it still
Who
exists,
would know that?
and who gets the revenue for it.
Who would know that?
I would
Well,
guess-
the school district, the
Yeah.
school district manages Polar Stadium,
but I'm talking, let's stay over the baseball field.
that's what I'm talking about, that's what
No,
they call.
Polar Stadium is where they play hockey.
Oh, they call this Polar Stadium or this
Wouldn't
one?
stadium be football?
Never heard of Polar Stadium.
Polar Stadium is there.
So
That must be.
needless to say, let's
research this.
bring
So-
Jill, I'm sorry, let's bring
Go ahead, Lisa.
Lisa in or somebody.
Well, you
To
need to
gain
talk to
some
the
clarity
school,
around
you need
what's
to
going
talk to
on.
the school district.
Hold on.
School
Yeah,
district
sure.
doesn't own the land.
But we have an entire facilities department who lends that out after 6 o'clock
That's
for the
not
high
this-
school.
So I'm struggling, why does the school district have any say to what is a North St. Paul City Park?
So
There's an agreement at some point
Yeah, I'll
somewhere.
find out. I
between
mean,
the two of
yeah,
them.
Way back, let's
Just like the
I know.
library
Yeah.
building.
At the high school, there was an agreement.
look into that, Jill.
So can we get some clarity around
Southern.
Jill,
absolutely.
Is it-
could we get a listing
I
of
beat this poor
all
thing
the
to death, guys, I'm
ball
sorry.
fields in North
I
St.
know we kinda
Paul?
talked
Would that be
with each other,
possible?
'cause he was
And
trying to
then-
go over it.
Uh-huh.
isn't the city,
I think
people
it's
gonna
more
throw a shit fit if we
It
try
may have
to
been a-
touch any of the park fields in this, or any of the ball fields in this town?
We don't know that. What's that?
I feel like there are so many like diehard baseball, like this town was built on baseball,
They do go down.
people
They do
that
once
if
when
we
they
touch
have
any
the
of
handle.
that,
Except if there are fields that are
Trying to figure out
never
why we would
used.
Have to be rescheduling if there were a lot of fields around, so I just gotta talk to Lisa.
Let's,
This is just definitely, I don't know.
let's leave it at that.
Yeah.
For the interest of time.
We'll get more.
Yeah.
We'll get
Yeah,
information.
so-
No, that's okay, go ahead. Jill.
And then-
So with that, what are we gonna move forward with? What project do you guys wanna pitch? I just wanted to bring up a whole bunch of stuff for you guys to think about in
Fire
different,
stuff.
and different
No,
ways of
I
looking
actually-
at
that's a
it
really good-
and, not overthink of it, just, and we started there, which is awesome.
Mhm.
Because then all of a sudden, when one question got answered, 10 more got asked and
Yeah.
who owns it? I've got no idea. So with that said, let's spend money.
All right, so here's my question to the commission tonight.
I mean-
How long do you want to be here? Or do we just pick some stuff tonight and discuss how we're gonna do it at the next meeting?
I think, like, I didn't come here prepared tonight to spend money as much as I like to.
You did or
My thought, I didn't, but I think what would be great is next month, I think it becomes our main
Okay.
topic, right? And I think we take the list that we have, like, that we created for ourselves and go back and look on that and say, which of these products, we created a list of like, what, 1, 3, 5, you know, whatever. And I think we have that. And then, you know, if we have, where did we get with our pretty park plan books that Laura voted for, like, found?
Oh, yeah.
After it's approved,
Oh, yeah,
okay.
that's right.
So maybe if it's approved on Tuesday, then we can have our pretty new book.
Yes.
And at the next meeting, we can,
Our post-its and our.
yeah, and then
tags and
we can
whatever,
discuss.
yeah.
And you can get like the FedEx price down there, like $8 a book. So
Oh, yeah, I was
Yeah.
like, we need 500.
So everybody in agreement that
Show how
we'll
much I
table
know.
it till next month and then we'll.
I think we should, because I think this,
Okay.
like, let it simmer, and I
Right.
think, you know,
Okay.
And maybe look it over and think about it a little bit. I don't think you can just.
Everybody go home and do
Decide
their
now.
homework. Okay,
Yeah.
that will be the big topic.
so basically on the agenda next month, we'll have the park improvement. We'll have the park usage quick update.
fine.
I'll get to October, but
We're
in a
also,
minute.
yeah, but we're gonna want to put it on next month, because
Yeah.
I'll talk to it in
Yeah.
a second, but.
And then we have to pick next month where we're gonna meet with the parks.
We already did.
Did we decide it?
June is Southwood.
Okay, we did.
So we're not
Because
doing
of the
May.
paving
Okay.
in the past, I think that was why we did Southwood.
So
January.
But May is here,
May's here still.
because it'll still be winter.
okay, so we.
Unless we're gonna go to Casey, we'll be inside.
I think
If
we're that
so.
in September.
Oh, do we? Okay.
That being said, Sarah?
October, yeah, so I reached out to Tom Sonic, and I mentioned that we were talking a little bit about like what that fall event could be, you know, maybe combining it with like art and art show. Some of you guys weren't here last month, we were discussing this, but we were discussing taking a 2-or-3 trail and morphing that into something still involves kids being able costumes or maybe getting candy, but like not how it used to be, which was kind of businesses came and set up booths and gave candy. But how can we do it so it's a little bit more interactive and actually let people sell things? And it kind of turned into a discussion about, could it be like a larger scale craft, like, you know, local people selling fun things as you walk around the trail? And could we have a wine tasting, or could we have music, and could we have a bonfire? And like, could we make it more not so like, for me, it's like, how do we walk away from these massive events where there was masses of humanities scrunched together? Because I think no one's going to be comfortable with that for a while. And how do we take an event and kind of space it out? And when we started talking about it being kind of potentially like an art fair combined with these things, Tom's, the art commission came up and like how they had talked about that. And could we combine forces with them, A, for help, B, to like kind of bring something to life since they're new and invigorated and excited about everything. And he's really excited about the idea. They have a meeting next week, and so he's gonna bring it back to his commission and talk to them. And so at that point, he said he'll circle back with me. And what I would anticipate being kind of like a subcommittee of people probably meeting off so we can decide what it's gonna be. The one thing that when I have talked to a few people who do like art fairs and things like that, we could charge a booth fee that would actually bring in income, so that we could potentially give it to like the splash. So what I told Tom is, I'm like, my thought would be is if we're going to generate income from this event, maybe from the wine tasting or for something else, we could take that money and reposition it to the lifeguard fund, which since the splash is gone, we don't really have a revenue making stream to do this, but this might be an easier way to say, okay, you know, normal art shows, it's like 200 and above to have a booth. We could charge 100 or something really reasonable that people would come in and, you know, you might have your Tupperware or whatever, but you might have local, hopefully some more like local artists. That where we would use the art commission to help us kind of stretch our wings and find groups.
I think, how do you do that when it's starting to get, it's dark?
We do it during the day. Like we do like 2 to 6 or something. Like it doesn't have to be.
In the
Yes,
past, it
that's
wasn't.
It was during the day.
Oh.
It was like,
Yeah, yeah, it was,
Oh, I
yeah.
didn't realize that, okay.
When we had the splash and we had some booths, I think 50 was probably the most we charged. I don't know if people would be willing to pay 100, but maybe if the right person.
I have a girlfriend I have 2 friends who do art shows pretty announcing. She's like, if you can guarantee X amount of, like, if she's like, if there's gonna be a population, she goes, I would much rather, and she's a really kind of more notable artist. she's like, I would gladly pay $100. And then she's like, I'm gonna make more money because I'm not paying the extra 200 I'd be to be at whatever. And she's like, a Dinah art fair is like 1,500 to $2,000 to have a
Yeah.
booth in. So she's like, you might be able to get a lot more like niche, like artisans in because they wouldn't charge as much, but
Yeah.
I don't know anything about, I'm not gonna pretend to know anything about running an art fair, which is why we're bringing in Tom. And part of this is just to brainstorm, like, I don't know what this is or what this could become, but I think this could become a more communal event where people, it's not just about kids, it's not just about, you know, people with children, it can be people with their dog, like, it can be people, just young couples, older couples, anybody.
Right.
It could be something for everybody, and I think that's, going forward, I think, of course, having kid events is important, but I think we also have to think about, obviously, the population that's changing around here, and
Would it
some of
just be,
I like that.
would it just be art show, or would it be a home improvements and stuff? Because we used to have home improvement at the rec center.
I mean, I
That's
think it
very
can be
popular
whatever we
there.
want it to be. I think it's like, I think if we think about having something for everybody, and then I think we could say, hey, if you're having a booth, we encourage you to pass out candy if it gets them around. But part of it is we're doing it really middle of October, and that is where a lot of people are saying, well, kids have their Halloween costumes yet, like, because we're trying to avoid NEA, and we're trying to avoid the weekend of Halloween, because that's when everybody does their stuff. So now that we're kind of mid-October, that's why we're saying it should be more fall focused, and like her bonfire, or excuse me, the fire and ice, like having a bonfire and just having places where people sit around, or having hot cider, like I think there's things we could provide for free still, or we're talking about activities for kids with pumpkins or something. But then maybe be able to like bring the community in and linger, and like,
Didn't we talk about street dance?
it was a street dance. Yeah, we were throwing everything, and they were like,
Yeah.
well, it can go all evening, and then the evening's the street dance. Because we can have alcohol in
Oh,
our parks
they,
until like.
there
9.
was-
until then.
There was, I talked to somebody that picked up food with, there was talk of the street dance. But there was some issues about if you open the whole street up, there's a huge, like for the car show, there was a huge insurance upgrade.
I think
For
Andy
the-
was talking about the old days, it used to be a blast.
Yeah,
In Weber's parking lot, they'd set up a beer stand and pop, and they'd have dancing outside and drinking tables. And you went down there and you brought your kids, and the kids all danced, and everybody danced. and
but if it was
fun.
connected with the car show,
Yeah.
their insurance would have. Now, the ball fields, they used to have a dance.
Well, anyways, we don't have to figure this out tonight.
Yep.
What I'm saying is, Tom's gonna get back to me,
Yes.
and then what I'll do is meet with
Let's entertain
Tom
it.
offline, and then hopefully by the next meeting, come back with some thoughts that we've come up with, and then gather everyone else's thoughts. I'd like to wrap up what we think it's gonna be, so we can actually work on doing the work to get people signed up, because apparently there's, if you do an art show, there's these national forums where you list your art show and how much it costs to enter, and then what it is, and then that's how a lot of people, like a lot of artisans, find it. And so we would want to get ourselves registered on something like that, you know.
Right. Thanks, Sarah. Old business, anything?
I had a question, sorry, I'm trying to figure this out. The Casey Lake Park sign, the digital sign, we've had parameters around this for a while, but who is allowed and who is not allowed to advertise on that board? The more I've driven past it, especially right before Easter, there was a lot of church groups, and there were several that said egg hunt, and I got like 40 emails from people saying, oh, what time is the egg hunt at Janie's Tiger? And I'm like, we're not having an egg hunt. Like, it says it right there on the sign, and then I went and read it, and it said like something church, and it didn't, and I'm just like, and then I got kind of angry, because I'm like, I didn't think we were letting churches go on this community public board, because that's a separation of church and state, and I'm not here to rain on anyone's religion, but I'm just like, that's a really confusing thing. And so I don't know who's managing that sign, but
I mean, Carrie kind of puts out just stuff that's happening in the community. Recently, it's just a lot of the churches are doing that stuff,
yeah.
but I don't know what those guidelines and rules are on that. We did get a call on that too,
That was just
The
a confusing
churches-
one.
The church has been on there for several years. It was primarily around, Lenten fish fry.
Oh.
Because how can
Oh, we did
How,
talk
how
about
can
that.
you let the Legion do it and not let
Yeah,
St. Pete's?
Yeah.
Where do you draw the line? So maybe it's time to revisit. What's
Just
going on?
putting city stuff on the signs and not anything else.
Or just ask,
Yeah,
what are the guidelines? Just so that
I think it's just more I'm just more asking around the guidelines, because it did seem very church heavy, which is fine, but I think as a citizen, that's a little confusing, like, when, it'd be different, if it was like church and then like North, I don't
Well,
know.
especially since that sign is right there by Casey and Egg Hunt, and if you're driving by quickly, which what I was, I missed the last meeting, as you know, and then I'm like, and then.
Yeah, I had to
went out
drive
of town,
back, and I
and
had
then
to wait like a long time for it to come back. So I'm
Yeah.
like, what is that egg hunt?
That's what I
And
was
did they
like,
call it
too.
Easter?
It was
well
on
either.
Easter.
We weren't allowed to
It was
call
Easter
it
egg.
The
Easter.
writing was really small.
Yeah, it was a pretty
Oh, yeah,
controversial
that's-
conversation, so.
Yeah, I don't want to bring it back up tonight. I just wanted to revisit it, because I just,
Yeah.
well, that was particular because I got so many, I had to field so many messages, like,
Oh.
what time is the egg hunt at Jamie's playground? I'm like, there isn't an egg hunt. Yeah, there is. It's on this, like, I got into an argument with one person, like, no, it's not. It says, it says like egg hunt, like whatever, and it didn't say anything else, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh crap, like.
Yeah.
Well, it was on the city Facebook.
Oh, it was on
Yeah.
Facebook too.
Yep.
I know it was, that's not, yeah, I had to feel that's some questions.
I got into a big argument with my ex-husband about it. He said I was lying to him and wasn't telling him. I'm not telling the egg hunt. He said, yes, you are.
Okay, other old business, besides that.
Sorry.
Okay, Larry, go ahead.
Jill, I don't know if anybody ever told City Fish, some graffiti, Casey. Building. It's
On the
on,
building, is it on the,
it's on the east side of the Booyah building.
I think so, and I did
I
put that
just-
in.
It's been there for a couple weeks now.
Okay.
Is that the one
Oh,
Heather put on
yeah, I saw
Facebook?
that.
It's white graffiti.
Yeah, the white one, yeah, Heather told me about that, I think the day after. And they saw that. I will put it in again. See, maybe they can't paint until it warms up, or it's just. Is that in our
That'll be
security
in
camera
July.
zone? I
Time
I
for more
didn't notice
cameras.
though, that I'm like, oh, they just did the door, they avoided the stone and they didn't do the siding, I'm crying.
Yeah.
Graffiti artist.
I'm like, it was.
You can't read on the stone, you can read on the door.
On the site, they could.
Well, on the side, you can read, yes. Anything else there? Any other old business? Reports from staff.
I'm still under the Boy Scout thing too, I totally threw space on that, and I was looking for my paper. I can't find the list of all the things that the Boy Scouts would need to do an Eagle project, but that's kind of a checklist to streamline the process. So I will get that to you, or I'll just check that.
Well, just give it to me and I will make you a Google form. That's what we agreed on, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you just need to send me the list and I'll make you a form.
And let's see where that's to.
And then now start pointing them towards the urban ecology education.
There
What do we call
you
it?
go.
Yeah.
That would be great.
It would be a great place for me to go.
Ah, yes. Anything else, Joe?
I had no,
I think of it
I'll
before
tell
we
you next
adjourn.
month.
Reports from, anything else from the commissioners? We got the liaison. Anything else? We have the old business.
I have, food truck night.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Laura, and then we'll get with you. Ingrid.
Food truck night is on Wednesday, July 27th. It's at Housey. Food trucks will be there from 6 to 8. I have Hometown Creamery, Chef Sean, Deep Root Concessions, which is like pork sandwiches, D&D goodies, and Camilla's Taqueria. So there'll be a good 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Is
5.
there music?
Oh,
Yes, and their our parks meeting will be from 6 to 6:30 in the enclosed shelter, which you have reserved, correct? And music will be by any day now, and I don't know when the music is starting. Do you?
They start 6 to 8. also.
Okay,
The park meeting is at from 6 to 6:30.
That's the open to the public and then.
That's
meeting
open to
at
the public,
6:30,
and then the
yeah.
meeting is at 6:30. Okay. So otherwise, we have to change that. Okay.
Way to whip that together, Laura.
I know.
we're all about it.
It just is exciting.
I know.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's election year. So everything's gonna go back to normal.
Yeah.
That's right.
Everybody, anything else?
I have a question.
Ingrid, sorry.
So, the park cleanup was going to be the citywide park cleanup was last Saturday. But it got rained out. So was there an official rescheduling of it to this next?
Not the citywide, so the Silver Lake redid theirs for this Saturday.
Yes, yeah.
Southwood didn't tell us anything, because they have the junior ROTC coming. They're about
Did they reschedule?
They didn't reschedule.
Oh, so they
just
kept
canceled.
going.
Yeah,
Oh,
they are.
So I don't know if they will, but it's kind of, it was like a long group, so she rescheduled, so probably just.
Okay, but as far as you know, like, that used to be something we talked about in this group, and kind of had a plan for.
Well,
Like-
and we put it out so people could come pick up bags and gloves, and I did have three groups of people. The Girl Scouts were supposed to do Casey Lake. I don't know if they did or not. Someone was gonna walk the Gateway Trail.
I saw a bunch of trash bags somewhere. I don't remember. I was like,
Yeah.
oh,
Oh,
the
they did
cleanup.
Yeah, and so we just had them drop them at Rotary Park and Casey.
And then we used to have the track team
Right.
be part of it. Was there any connection?
I don't know.
Were they, did they always just wait for an invitation?
No,
Have
no,
not
they were,
said?
this is a project.
Okay.
7 or 8 years.
And then COVID came.
You know, I think we found a reward.
Yeah, there used to be kind of you know,
I
and
don't
then,
know if Todd's still in the track.
okay, so, so it's too late to kind of get that coordinated this year, but moving forward next year, let's make sure to connect with the high school and just say, are you interested in it? Because it's kind of a nice way for those high school kids to get involved in a community thing that was a short time period, but they could make a difference. And, it was nice to have them down at Silver Lake, even a group of like 7 kids that would come down. It was just nice. So I'd hate to lose that connection to the high school. So moving forward for next year, let's see if they're still interested.
Citywide, recycle thing this Saturday.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that?
It is a public works and they can bring almost any.
So this is the thing where we
Gas and
drive
oil,
by
I
and we
guess.
drive
Yeah.
on stuff.
Yeah.
How does that be?
This
Yeah.
was huge, wasn't it last year, just crazy,
Oh,
because they didn't have enough people working.
People waited a while.
Yeah.
And they shortened it from 8 to 11.
Is this a public works building?
So
Where
the,
is this? Okay.
so the clue from last year was people sat there like an hour before it even opened, so the back way up. But if you rolled in the last half hour, there's no line.
Oh,
So that was the one key takeaway that I learned from last year.
Okay.
Anything else?
How is that being publicized? I'm just curious.
Oh,
Is
it's-
it on
it's on the
the
page when you
When I
first-
go to the website, I don't see anything like attention grabbing. It always seems to be like,
It was also in the newsletter that just came out.
We're gonna-
here,
You need to sign up for the.
You can sign up for it.
okay.
Because the city no longer sends information in the bills, because nobody was getting bills.
Right.
So there's multiple things that you can sign up for.
Facebook.
Yeah.
Multiple things you can jump on the.
Yeah.
They
Citywide
send
cleanup.
emails too.
Yeah.
Yeah, citywide cleanup right there.
So that is on
Yeah.
what page?
Front page
This
of our
is our
website.
city webpage, so if you scroll down and get to those, you'll see
There we go.
like all of the big icons
Great.
are kind of the icons there. So.
Great, okay, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the garage sale is coming up the
Wow.
weekend after, so we've been giving out all the signs. and everything to get that.
Okay.
Does anybody know how the enter apartments are as far as rentals going?
That's new.
I don't think they're starting that yet.
I don't
It
think
says
they-
that they're having their grand opening May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bring it back to, and I'll do it with respect to the time. I'm gonna bring it back to the, I'm gonna bring it back, okay. Bring it back to the issues at hand. Anything else? Tim's got one thing, anybody else?
I have one last thing that popped to mind. The Economic Development Authority is working with WSB to give green space downtown. There is what has been the parking lot for Sidewinders.
Yes.
It's the space between Sidewinders and
Thanks for that.
the new tattoo parlor. Part of our city guidance is that when buildings are removed, the land is to be leveled and planted back to green.
Oh,
The city hasn't, we haven't done that.
I've asked
That
that
building's
lot.
been down
Oh,
for a
no.
long time, so WSB had 3 plans in front of the EDA last month. There will be some parking on What's Sepulveda?
Sepulveda.
Sepulveda, thank you. I was close, start with an S. They're talking about some type of a parking lot back there and what that would look like, and they would close off the access to Seventh. And so they would have from the sidewalk back planted grass. So moving on May next year, I mean, we'll have.
Can we
we'll
make that a park, or they're basically just saying it's grass until they want to sell it?
It's grass till they want to sell it, but it's no different than where we held the land, held
Almost,
before.
Sarah, almost.
You know, Timmy, there's an issue that I'm really quite upset about. I found out that merchants were allowed to say they didn't want a tree in front of their business.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. That should not be their decision. Our tree canopy is disappearing and yeah. And I don't know who they are, what, drive down the street.
Sue on a rampage. This tree here.
Where was there a tree and there isn't now? Well, there isn't any now, but I mean, there will be. But I was told that there were some merchants and I don't know, I can't tell. Maybe the chiropractor, because evidently they actually dug up some of the put cement in some of those spots where last fall, where last fall they had put down the mulch. But I think that's a really bad policy. They should not be allowed to make that decision in my estimation.
I don't know who, it's never come in front of council. So I don't know who's making, or if it did, it was in
Yeah.
the one meeting I missed.
I would have thought they would have had a like, landscaping plan. that they
Correct.
could've just went with.
Right,
Wow.
that's coming front,
Mhm.
and what they're talking about now is what, you know, the benches and the picnic tables and what that'll look like, but nothing was really brought up, so I have no idea.
Wow.
Okay, anything else? Any other new business, old business, new business?
Yeah.
I got two things. Which else moving, hopefully May 9th. Moving down, that's by the old,
Park business.
huh?
Tim has a hard out at 8.
I'm out at 8,
He's out at
but
8.
I'm well aware of the moving, and anybody who wants to help volunteer can.
Oh, yeah, that's what we're going at. Trees at Southwood. They cut down some trees that were falling into part on the north end. That were leaning over. So they're gonna, Kathy and I are corresponding back and forth as to what should go in there because we're considering donating some trees back there. So what we need to know is what we should be putting back there because it is city. That's right. Kathy and I are corresponding back and forth as to what we should put back there. She gave me some suggestions.
And there, we have city arborist.
And she's a master dancer. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Sorry, I gotta bail, guys.
Okay.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
Oh, you go.
Motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed.
I'm ready to spend money next month. Let's get some plans up there.
Okay.
There's been a lot of pent